folks, Amy from Colorado Mountain Living. I know I've been promising a bee video update, and it's been a while. I've been having a hard time trying to work with the weather and work with my short time frames during the day to be able to get into the hive and see what's going on. So last time we were in the hive, I was noticed that the first hive, our new hive, was expanding and they were doing really great. So I put on a super, and so I want to see how they're doing. And then the hive, original hive number 1 that's in the middle now, they seemed a little ornery. So I wanted to follow up with them to see what their status was. They've been my strongest hive. They were the ones that were the honey producers last year. And then the hive on the end, that was a nuke from 2 years ago. And anyway, I hadn't really had a chance to kind of get down into those overwintered hives. So I've mostly focused on the new hive. So today I want to kind of take a look through and see how they're doing and give you an update on the overall status of the apiary this summer. Well, Brian's working on the wood. Let's see if you can still hear me. So I'm expecting to actually see a lot of dead bees in the feeder. The feeder's still on here. The bees tend to crawl into the feeder when it runs out of feed and they get trapped. So I'm not really sure what we'll see. A lot of dead bees, yeah. It's just, I think there's like a tiny hole in the screen and the bees crawl in here. So as you can see, they just tend to get stuck. Anyway, so last week I had put in a new, super in this hive because I knew that the bees probably were going to want to expand. And wait till you see this. In fact, really busy. I'm seeing a lot of pollen. I'm seeing a lot of honey. I'm seeing a wire seeing a lot of drones. It's really cool. So hard to say at this point if the honey is sugar water or if they're pulling it in from the wildflowers, but I think I'm going to stop feeding them at this point. They do look like they're doing really, really well. They're super calm. So I always like that. That means they've just got a lot to focus on. So they're all in their honeycombs here. It smells really good. Definitely smells like flowers. I actually feel like they could be ready for another super. So I want to see how many are filled out here. Put this guy back in, nice and easy. Usually the rule of thumb is 7 frames filled out, and then you got your edge ones and they're ready for another level. So yeah, they're definitely building comb and they're filling it. So looking really, really good here. And they got that wax foundation that really helps it save them the energy from producing their own wax. A lot of activity going on right here. So, okay, looking good. Very happy with this hive. And I think they're about ready for another super. So I'm going to put one on next. Just going to kind of work these over. Okay, got another super. Here we go. So these bees are expanding and that's great. Now they're ready for their honey super. So the great thing is with all of the foundation, they've got plenty of wax to work with to build out their comb. And now that wildflower season is here, they are ready to be putting up some honey. Okay, new hive done, looking good. And now get the feeder out of there. No more bee deaths due to the feeder. Okay, so on to our old hive, our old favorite, hive number 1. Let's see what's going on over here. pull this feeder out. Don't think they're using this anymore. Okay. Now this hive, I felt like was a little bit more anxious last time I went in it. And they normally have the calm temperament. So very curious, you know, the status of their queen and such. They seem really calm right now. Now all this junk on top is pollen patties from before. Actually might scoop them off today. Definitely makes a mess inside the hive. The pollen patties, gets everything really stained. So let's see the status so far. This is going to be the mid frame of this upper super. Very busy, very busy. Interestingly, this hive does not have as much nectar as the other hive did, so they're kind of dry. This hive might do good with still some more feeder action. Very, very dry here. Actually might put the feeder on this one. The big feeder. A lot of empty comb. And empty comb, not a good thing for this time of year. They really should be loading up. So I found it kind of strange that the comb was empty. And so I'm getting suspicious at this point. So I'm actually going to take this hive down apart a little bit more. I'm wondering if they're maybe not failing. I don't really see much going on in this hive. There is some brood, so there's definitely still a queen. One interesting thing I'm seeing is that there's a lot of poop coming out the bee's butt. Not sure if they have dysentery or what's going on here. So they all have like this yellow poop coming out. So yeah, it's interesting. This hive's not thriving, and I'm just seeing little yellow, little poop everywhere. So that's definitely concerning. Not sure how this hive got sick, but it's not cool to look at. I do not see a queen anywhere. They're not acting like they don't have a queen, but I should probably take another look a little further down here. Put this frame back in. Maybe the queen was on this frame. Oh, yeah, I do see her right there. So queen is right there. The queen also may not be doing well. She's a very old queen. This is the same queen from my original. She's 3 years old. She may not be laying like she should. So sadly, hive number 1 is not my number 1 hive anymore. And they're kind of just clustered around her, you know, just trying to, like, I don't know, let's just call it the end or something. I'm not really sure. I can take a look down into other brood boxes, but I think I know what I'm going to see. I think we're going to see not a lot of action. So here's another example of a dry honeycomb. Nothing in it, barely any pollen. I do not see any activity on the one below. So this is a hive on the verge of starvation. There could be something else going on. So definitely disappointing. Hard to know. It could be due to a weak queen. Could be due to anything. A variety of factors. So what I'll do, my last ditch effort, I think, for this hive is to feed really heavily. and I'll just get a lot of syrup going and see if that can bring them back. I just, I've been using the feeder and they've been taking it, but not incredibly, not really taking in a ton of feed. So, because they're days away, I'd say, from not making it. There's a little bit of brood, but I think the queen stopped laying. They're all kind of clustered around her. So kind of sad to see. Yeah, I can't really troubleshoot more than that other than I'm just going to try to get a feeder on there and see if that helps the situation. So I'll just put a cover on for now to keep them warm while I go make up some more feed. The other, hopefully this one's better than Hive 1. They do look like a lot of bees in here. So just getting a little bit of smoke. Also this hive, I need to take care of the pollen patties that are in there. Pick them off. At least there's not quite as many. So I'm going to try to get my first frame out of here. First of all, you can make room by so they're putting up honey. Already a good sign, right? This hive 1 was totally dry, had nothing in it. This hive's putting up honey in their final frame. They're just trying to make room. They are definitely ready for another super. Not fully full of honey yet, so still kind of dry, but some moderate amounts of honey and nectar in these frames. So, they seem like they're already in better shape than Hive 1. A mixture of nectar, capped honey. Yeah, they definitely seem like they're in better shape than Hive 1. I had my suspicions about Hive 1 last time. They seemed a little agitated, more than normal. They've always been the calm hive, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get back in there to see what was going on. Whoop! Bunch of bees just got angry. So I'll just leave it. So what I'll do is put another super on. These guys need more room, and I'll go get the super, put it on, and then get the feeder on Hive 1 and see if I can save it. So, already has built out comb, so all they need to do is fill it. So saving them a lot of work to have this built out comb. Some of it's still got a little bit of honey in it. How about that? So definitely saving them some steps. Right. Got a new super on Hive 2 and Hive 1, they're in a sad state, but I did find a couple of frames of honey left over from last year. So I'm going to throw those in there, and then I'm going to put a feeder on top. And this might be my last ditch effort to save them because I'm actually worried if they're already too far gone. So they're very calm. I feel like they're just trying to save their energy. They don't even seem to really have like defense bees at this point. So I try to find the frame that had the brood. This one, and the hive also kind of has a smell to it. This is why I feel like they have some of them are sick with like some kind of dysentery. Just seeing it in the hive. So we keep the brood together, and I'll put the honey frame on either side of it. Again, that's the brood frame. So there's like 3 to 4 brood frames. I'll put the honey frame right in the middle. So at least they have some immediate food. And then I'm going to put the feeder on top. So I'll come back, put the feeder on. Okay, got my feed ready. And I got a little bit of non-toxic epoxy. I'm just going to shove in that corner It's like the tiniest little hole, but once the feeder is empty, the bees crawl through this hole right in here. So I'm just going to block it. That's how they end up getting trapped in the feeder and dying, because they come through this little hole. Let's see. It's definitely assuming that their only problem is starvation, but the fact that they're starving makes me think there's some other kind of problem. I made up more than a gallon of syrup here, so well, it's definitely unfortunate about Hive 1. They've been my best hive. Kind of sad to see them failing right now, but you know, I'm not really sure. You know, it's one of those things where you can be a beekeeper for years and not really sure what caused them to go downhill. One factor is that the queen was pretty old. I think this was her 3rd year. I got this hive from a beekeeper 3 years ago, right when we moved here, and we weren't even living on the property yet. So it was from a split. The queen was amazing. It's possible that the swarm hived. It's possible that the hive swarmed, and I never saw the swarm. The swarm, you know, it could be why there's so few bees left behind. That's a possibility. But the other thing that's got me going is that they have the yellow poop. So there may be some sickness in the hive, there might be some kind of dysentery. And for leaving the hive, for the swarm, there's no signs of swarm. Like there's no queen cells, there's no nectar, there's no honey, there's basically hardly any food in the hive. There's some pollen. So definitely something weird going on. I'd love to hear your ideas. You know, you might have a lot more experience seeing these kinds of things when a hive goes downhill. I did not do a mite count this year so far, so I don't feel like there's enough bees in there to do a mite count right now. It would be, I would call it a miracle if they do survive this. So we'll see what happens. I'll check on them next week, and hopefully, you know, I'll kind of keep an eye on the feed and see if they're taking it. If they're not taking the feed, that's kind of a sign that they're already kind of deciding it's the end. But there is a queen in there, and I did see some larvae, so she's not completely, you know, not producing. But you know, as far as eggs and stuff, it's very minimal. And it could be that she's an aging queen and they didn't feel like they had the resources to replace her. So a lot of times bees will requeen themselves, but they're not doing that for whatever reason. So very interesting part of beekeeping. You don't always keep every single hive. As far as the few numbers that I do have for the bees, I actually feel, you know, I only have 3 hives, and so far I haven't lost a hive yet. It's been 3 years in the mountains. So I definitely feel like that's a positive sign. You know, a lot of times people who are beekeepers lose about 50% of their hives every winter, and that's average. So that's pretty common to lose 50% of your hives. So anyway, definitely have been more on the fortunate side, but we'll be curious to see what comes of these bees. I'm not sure what other kind of intervention I could have done earlier, other than maybe requeening right at the beginning of the season. It was hard getting into the hive early enough. You know, the weather just doesn't really lend itself very easily to frequent hive checks. So that's another challenge of beekeeping in the mountains that you should know about. Anyways, guys, love to hear your thoughts on failing hives, on dysentery in the hives, any of you guys that are beekeepers that are watching, and starving hives. You know, why a hive is not bringing in, not putting up lots of feed, because I've been feeding them all spring. So just interesting that it seems like whatever honey stores they did have, they went through, and there's not very many bees in there at all. There's pretty much no bees in the bottom 2 boxes, just a few in the top. So anyway, that's the status of those. We'll see if we can save them. If not, then you know, that's a fact of life. You know, sometimes with beekeeping, you don't get to save them all. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll keep you posted on the weekend updates around the rest of the homestead. Next video.